Coming up.
I washed before I came here.
Yeah, I thought we were doing it both ways.
That was like an entire episode of Are You Being Served?
A lot of information, isn't there?
No, I think that may be a little too much information.
Mud. Sonic mud. And yet it doesn't seem to dent their appeal.
That I would find a challenge.
I genuinely don't think it does work.
But there are all kinds of audiences out there.
Makes me sad.
How do you say that?
But everything about it felt horrible.
Inches from your audience's face.
Oh, that's a great visual to use.
If it sounds like a list, it'll sound dull.
Such a sweet little scene.
And now, enjoy the podcast.
How do you say that?
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 Hello and welcome to How Do You Say That, sponsored by BritishVoiceover.co.uk. Here's my co-host, Samantha Boffin.
Hello.
Hello.
And this is my co-host, Mark Rice.
Hello. If you're new to this podcast, this is what it's all about. Every week, we set out to prove there isn't just one way to read a script, there are lots of different ways.
And we do that by inviting a special guest onto the show. So we bring a script, and they bring a script, and we all get to give them both a read.
But before we do that, let's play true or false. So, Sam, if I went on Bake Off, you know, the Great British Bake Off, lemon meringue pie would be my speciality bake. True or false?
I've never known you talk about lemon meringue pie. I'm hoping that it's true because I do like a good lemon meringue pie. I'm going to go true.
I think it's false. I would love it to be, but I've never actually made one.
They are tricky beasts.
I like eating it, but you know.
Tricky beasts. Okay, well. So, okay, Mark. So my true or false is my first and favourite car was a dark green 1973 Saab.
Ooh.
Is that true or false?
Dark green 1973
Yeah, there's a
Saab.
lot of information, isn't there?
No, I think that may be a little too much information. I'm gonna cry false on that because I don't see you in a dark green car.
It's true. It's true. It's not false at all. It's my absolute favourite car. I mean, it was a bit of an old banger by the time I got it, but I absolutely loved it. God,
Wow.
I'd love that Saab back. Gosh, yeah. Anyway.
Well, let's welcome our special guest for this week, voice actor and coach Anthony Shuster. Hello, Anthony.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome along. Let's find out a little bit more about him, shall we, Sam?
Absolutely. So Anthony is a voice actor and a coach with extensive experience of working with actors, non-actors and professional performers. He read English at the University of Oxford, where he specialised in linguistics, chose a very good career path, and went on to train in voice, diction and accents at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art.
Oh, rather lovely. As an actor, he's worked extensively in theatre, TV and radio with companies including the National Theatre, the Royal Shakespeare Company, the BBC and Channel 4. And as a voiceover coach, he works with experienced and aspiring professional artists through places like Gravy for the Brain and Richcraft. So, Anthony, have you got a fun fact for us, please?
Well, I think it's a fun fact. I have had fun with it over my life. But I officially have 3 different native accents.
Oh.
Canadian,
Yeah.
RP,
Yeah.
and Midlands.
See, I'm hearing the RP, but how can they all be native, though, Anthony?
Well, I was born in Canada, so my first accent was more like this. So, you know, I consider this, if I take it literally, like this is my native accent. This is how
Okay.
it first sounded when I learned to speak. But then we moved to England when I was a child. We went back and forth between Canada and England a couple of times. But this time we moved to Warwickshire. And so I spent my teenage years speaking in this sort of Warwickshire accent, which is not quite Birmingham, it's not quite Coventry, it's sort of flattened out like that. So I do work in that accent quite a bit. It's not a very straightforward thing to have, which is why it's often a good conversation starter in auditions and people.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
How is it that you're all 3?
On that treble-based accent, fun fact, let's have a look at the first script of our show and ask, how do you say that?
How do you say that?
So I bought a lovely little piece along this week.
About fairy tales. Yes.
It is about fairy tales, yes.
Is it a documentary about fairy tales?
No.
Oh.
It is not a documentary about fairy tales, although it's a close cousin to the documentary.
Oh. E-learning?
No. Sorry.
English as a foreign language? I don't know what it is.
No, it's an audio guide. Sorry, it's
Oh,
a
an
museum
audio
piece.
guide.
It's yeah.
Did you get that, Anthony, from this?
Well, I'm reading it and trying to sort of imagine it in my head. Sort of how would this sound like? This kind of register. I thought, okay, it's almost like documentary voiceover, but there's some bits of it that are not quite like. Look for other familiar characters. I'm
exactly.
like, ooh, okay.
All right. Well, I'll give it a go. How many fairy tales do you recognise here? And why do they all seem to take place in the Middle Ages? Figures like Puss in Boots and Humpty Dumpty are not just recognisable, they're reused and reimagined in contemporary films like Shrek. Look for other familiar characters. Little Red Riding Hood conversing with a wolf, Robin Hood crossing a river, Jack and the Beanstalk, and Old Mother Goose soaring in the skies. These and others continue to shape our collective imagination.
Lovely. What were you doing while you were doing that? What were you imagining?
I was looking for the characters, I
Lovely.
think.
What did you think, Anthony?
Well, I mean, it's vivid. I think that's the thing I'd be instinctively wanting to try and bring them to life a little bit. And of course, if it's a guide which is meant to accompany you looking, it's got to have that sense of really intimate kind of, what about over here? That kind, and I think that had a lovely quality about it like that.
Yes, which is exactly what you needed to have. How did you feel about it, Mark? Was it how you expected it to come out of your mouth?
Not quite, no. It was interesting because I could see the images in front of me, but I wasn't quite sure in what setting they were.
Okay.
I did imagine that they were listening in headphones, so I wasn't trying to push it too hard. I figured that it was more intimate than that.
And that was right. It is more intimate. It's a more intimate piece.
Yeah.
When Sam says, it's not for children, it's for adults, then I'm thinking, okay, but it's not super specialised in its language.
No.
Not at this point, you're right, yeah.
It's kind of, it doesn't want to be all sort of patronising, but it does want to, but also at the same time, it's fairy tales, right? So it's not going to be really po-faced and really, academic and dry.
Because we all know these characters exactly right. I'm interested to see what you're going to do with it, though, Anthony. I'd love to see.
Well, I hope I haven't built up some sort of expectation. Okay, let's give it a go. How many fairy tales do you recognise here? And why do they all seem to take place in the Middle Ages? Figures like Puss in Boots and Humpty Dumpty are not just recognisable, they are reused and reimagined in contemporary films like Shrek. Look for other familiar characters. Little Red Riding Hood, conversing with a wolf, Robin Hood crossing a river, Jack and the Beanstalk, and Old Mother Goose soaring in the skies. These and others continue to shape our collective imagination.
From my perspective, I thought that was very factual. I was getting a little bit stern from that. I was almost getting stern teacher from that.
Yes, I as I halfway through, I'm a little bit like, it was a little bit like, not intimate enough to be right in your ear.
I was a bit concerned that actually if I didn't spot Little Red Riding Hood, I might get told off.
Told off. No. But what I loved, though, was actually you did really lean into the reused and reimagined, because that's an important thing that they do. I mean, you wouldn't know this necessarily, but this is what they do all the way through this piece. It's a much, much longer piece, obviously. And it's about art in the Middle Ages.
And I think you went more factual because you were aiming at the adults rather than the children, as we were talking about.
Yeah. And I think actually once I got into the list, and then suddenly halfway through that list of images from fairy tales, I remembered what Sam said about it's a montage. It's like a kind of, you are literally looking at them when you listen to this. So it's not like, okay, here's your homework. Go out and find some representations. I felt a bit like that. It was more like, so have a look for some other familiar characters. Little Red Riding Hood conversing with a wolf. Yeah, it's yes. I'll take some of that, row back on that element of it. Yeah.
I wonder if we were anywhere close, Sam, between us.
Oh, well, I mean, this is not a super difficult thing. So, I mean, yes, I mean, you were all there. Anyway, this is what I did. This is what I was asked to do.
Okay.
How many fairy tales do you recognise here? And why do they all seem to take place in the Middle Ages? Figures like Puss in Boots and Humpty Dumpty are not just recognisable, they are reused and reimagined in contemporary films like Shrek. Look for other familiar characters. Little Red Riding Hood conversing with a wolf, Robin Hood crossing a river, Jack and the Beanstalk, and Old Mother Goose soaring in the skies. These and others continue to shape our collective imagination.
Well, that's it. That's that lovely sort of intimate. It's right there in your ear.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not school. It didn't feel like being at school.
I tell you what I got from it. I got that cadence of audio guide because, especially when you said, look for other familiar characters. So I was there and I was actually looking. The direction was very much there. And you slowed right down, which I don't think either of us did, Anthony, particularly, between the list. I think the list was more slow than either of us had done.
Yes, and because you've got to have that time to really have a look, haven't you?
Indeed, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I say this to people a lot when I'm coaching them, or particularly when we do anything that involves lists.
Yeah.
Is that if it sounds like a list, it'll sound dull, even if it's a list of quite exciting things. I'm starting to switch off. So each of those items in the list had its own quality, was its own thing. And one other thing I liked, Sam, was the little laugh on the tiniest hint of a little sort of scoff on that second line.
Yes, totally. It made it very friendly, actually, Anthony, didn't it?
I think what they were going for is it was quite a dry subject, which is why they lent into the fun things like fairy tales and Puss in Boots, because it lightened it. Because it was quite an academic piece about art in the Middle Ages. And what they were trying to do was make it accessible and make it interesting and make it, and so that to bring, a wider audience into it. And you're right, your immediate thing when you're doing something that's about art, about the Middle Ages, about you're going to be a little more, your natural reaction is to go, oh, I see, they want something quite conservative. Actually, they want something quite proper almost, and that's not really what they wanted. Because I started off being proper, and they went, no, Sam.
Okay.
So,
Excellent. Well, it is worthwhile remembering that these are real scripts we're working on. We have changed some names and details to avoid copyright issues, though. Remember, you can find both the scripts we're using today in the show notes of the episode. Play, how do you say that?
Anthony, tell us a bit about your script.
So this was some voiceover for an online advert for online therapy.
Yep.
And so it's a social media advert.
Okay, I see, for GoodEar. Right, okay.
So this I took as an example, so exploring something which I have maybe slightly clunkily termed the grammature style of voiceover.
See, I think I know what you mean.
You see what I did there?
As in the people who appear on Instagram, the influencers, quote unquote, and they're being paid to do this, but they have no voiceover in them. Because the client wants them as an ordinary person.
The sort of content people are used to consuming on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok is created by people who are not of a voiceover background.
Or an acting background or a performing background, pretty much.
Or anything.
Yeah.
But that's had a huge influence, I think, on what people expect from voiceover.
Yeah.
I think we thought, that'll never catch on. That's not proper talking.
Well, exactly. This is it. I get this reaction a lot. So I do workshops. Sometimes I did a workshop on this at One Voice last year. And there is certainly that kind of pushback against it, or that kind of aversion to it from very experienced voiceover artists who are like, this is like mud, sonic mud, listening to these people. Like, I can't
the old
bear
guard.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's difficult about it, I think, is that a lot of them do everything wrong, quote unquote. Like everything that everything that you would expect a professional voiceover artist to not do, these content creators do, and yet it doesn't seem to dent their appeal. It doesn't. Their comment sections aren't full of people going, "You have such a boring voice. Why don't you get a professional to do your voiceover?" But there's lots of mannerisms, vocal mannerisms that they do, and it's not just that some people's authentic voices are inherently ill-suited to voiceover. It's that sometimes then when they do voiceover, they adopt a kind of voiceover voice that, again, is full of what we might think of as bad habits. And yet it doesn't seem to be an issue. Their content's still popular. They still have hundreds of thousands of followers. So what I think that's got relevance for the professional voiceover artists is that when people come to expect that from voiceover, then they come to think of professional voiceover, traditional professional voiceover, as sounding a bit too slick.
Yes, too
and
pro.
a bit too
yeah.
pro.
Sam and I need to read this, and I'm wondering actually how you would like us to approach it.
Okay, well, if we were trying to achieve this sort of authentic, let's call it that, because this is the word that comes up again and again, authentic style, then it might almost, if I was to direct you, I'd say, make it as boring as possible.
Yep.
throw it away. You're not selling anything. You're just talking to a trusted friend about something. You're talking to a friend who's asked you for a recommendation, but no pressure if you don't want to do this. It's just you're just going to put it out there in a friendly, non-pressuring way.
Sam, I'm gonna throw the mantle to you for the first one on this one, because I think this is difficult.
Yeah, so me too. I mean,
seasoned pros. Yes,
I think it is difficult. So I'll have a go. That's it. I'll probably balls it up. But let's see. Okay. So Beck, what I was going to say, I was going to talk about this, because the thing is, I've been doing therapy on and off for about a decade now, and I must say, it can be really hard finding a therapist that you click with, let alone someone with an open schedule in general. And whether it's dealing with that initial search, location, or connecting with a therapist, doing all of that work only to find out you don't vibe with that person, can be incredibly discouraging. I'd suggest getting your feet wet with therapy through GoodEar in order to start healing the things that shouldn't have any power over you.
See, I like that, but I'm not sure that's what I'm hearing on Instagram.
I'm sure it's not.
Okay. Well, I like the texture of it, but I think that there's a quality in there of like sort of trying to find the words that we have in conversation, don't we? Especially when we're approaching a delicate subject, we do it in a slightly halting way, don't we? And I don't think that's something that's easy to get away with on social media, partly because of the format. Everything's super quick. Because the adverts are really quick, the reels are really fast. That sort of texture, that sort of feel, but twice as fast and with no hesitations at all.
Twice as fast with no hesitations.
Yeah.
Okay, so that I would, because that's the interesting thing, is that I would find a challenge.
Yeah.
If you come up against all this, in many different styles of voiceover, once it's swift and you haven't got the time to do all of that acting-y bit, if you like, all the extras. That's where I find it really challenging to do that style and not just make it a very swift voiceover-y style.
That's not what I'm hearing on Instagram. It's much duller. It's much faster. There is much less expression.
I'm very rarely asked to do that sort of thing, but I should really have it in my wheelhouse to do, and I don't. So it's my bad that I don't. So I should be able to do it.
Well, this is what I say to voiceover artists when we're discussing this. Is they say, really? Do I really have to throw everything, all my skills out of the window and just do this stuff? Yeah. And I say, it's something to have in your wheelhouse, in your tool bag. Because if you've got clients, say, whether it's for adverts or whether it's for e-learning or anything, it's worth understanding this style, so that if you get asked, can we have something a little bit more TikTok voiceover, that you can go, okay, I can do that but still make it a professional quality read. Because that's the one thing that I think a lot of non-professional content creators, as in non-professional voiceover content creators, do. The authenticity means that they are a one-trick pony. They can only give you one type of read. Yes. The format's different to traditional adverts, for example. Like radio adverts have got to grab your attention. TV adverts have got to, it's across the room. So it's got to reach across the room, your voiceover. Whereas this is literally inches from your audience's face.
Oh, that's a great visual to use. That is a really useful analogy, because you're right.
Yeah. That's how far away they are.
Yes, you're so right. How much, therefore, because of course one of the things that I found difficult doing that is that it didn't follow speech patterns. The words on the page were, were faux, if you like. Well, so you have to stick to the words, but you have to, that's our job, is to then make it feel as if you're, because I wouldn't use those words to my friend.
See, the other thing that happens is, like, as I say, then you get this certain type of, with similar thing, content creators who don't have a professional VO background reading scripted content. And then they put 2 patties on a grill, slam it with cheese, bacon, more bacon, and then into a toasted bun. Chow down. And it's like that. It's sort of almost like a parody of a kind of Jeremy Clarkson style thing. And it's like they're reading a list, And it is a list for them. They do this.
That's what they are doing, though, Anthony. That's exactly what's happening.
Exactly. And they sound bored out of their minds.
Yes.
But it works.
Yeah.
It works.
I don't think it does work. I genuinely don't think it does work.
But there are all kinds of audiences out there.
Makes me
and different
sad.
audiences vibe with different things. You know, so I guess it's just another string to our bow if we can actually nail it.
All right.
I suspect, yeah.
Well, guess what I'm going to try and do now?
Nail it.
I'm going to try and nail the bored TikTok Instagram read. Let's see what comes out. I've been doing therapy on and off for about a decade now, and I must say it can be very hard. Finding a therapist that you click with, let alone someone with an open schedule in general, whether it's dealing with that initial search location or connecting with the therapist, doing all of that work, only to find out that you don't vibe with that person can be incredibly discouraging. I'd suggest getting your feet wet with therapy through GoodEar in order to start healing the things that shouldn't have any power over you.
Okay, now that's nearer the mark.
Yes, absolutely. That's right.
But everything about it felt horrible.
No, but it was good, Mark. It was swift and it was, I mean, I didn't take any of the information in, but
no, nor me.
because that's how swift it is.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. The point is that yeah, I thought that was really good.
I think that's why it doesn't work, because I don't think you do take in the information. I don't think the young audience also, I don't think they take in the information unless it is subtitled on the screen. That's what they're taking in.
Well, that's a good point, is that a lot of this voiceover is often captioned at the same time. All they kind of need to get from it, if it's advert copy like this, all they need to get from it is just enough interest to actually click the link.
Yes.
And then the info will be in the link.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, when I'm thinking about the brands that I interact with personally on social media, they're often quite small, quite boutique brands.
Yeah.
And I love hearing them. I love hearing Katie talk about, you know, her stuff. I really do. I just and she's obviously she's not a professional voiceover, but she has real passion in her
stuff.
It feels much more authentic because she's created that company, and I feel as though I know Katie.
It feels to me cheap. Is what it feels to me.
It doesn't to me.
But we're two very different people from that perspective. Anthony, will you show us what you show your students and how you think it should be done?
The original content was in an American accent, so I'm going to use my Canadian accent for this because I think it will just I think it will help. Well, we'll see. Maybe if we get time, I'll try it in a different accent. So I've been doing therapy on and off for about a decade now, and I must say it can be very hard finding a therapist that you click with, let alone someone with an open schedule in general. Whether it's dealing with that initial search, location, or connecting with the therapist, doing all of that work only to find out that you don't vibe with that person can be incredibly discouraging. I'd suggest getting your feet wet with therapy through GoodEar in order to start healing the things that shouldn't have any power over you.
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
That's super quick.
Yeah, really, really quick.
I can sort of see how it is incredible to be able to nail different styles. How often are these different styles asked for, requested from voice artists like us? I don't mean like Mark and I per se. I mean just like, you know, pro voice artists out there. How often?
Artists, yeah.
Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it? And I get a variety of responses because some people say, they come into these webinars that I run and say, I can see what you're talking about, but it doesn't tend to come up with the sort of stuff that I'm doing. You know, and usually, okay, if you've got a very kind of traditional voiceover voice and your reel is giving that, then that's what they want. So they're not going to then come in and they're going to go, can you just throw all that out the window and just do it like, you know, like you're in a rush and you've got somewhere you need to be. What some voiceover artists are worried about is that if they can't give something like this, that then they're going to limit opportunities. Yeah. Like, well, I'll sort of give you a sort of laundry list of the things I was trying to do in that read. First of all, I was trying to do the plane coming into land pattern.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you start on a high note and you just carry on until you get to the bottom, and then so it's like that, just all the way from the top to the bottom. I'm doing upspeak occasionally.
Yes.
Just tilting it up. You know, finding out that you don't vibe with that person can be incredibly discouraging. And then devoicing, that get a bit of vocal fry at the ends of thoughts, at the ends of lines, and that kind of shopping list intonation, whether it's doing that initial search, location, connecting with your therapist. You know, like I don't think these are things people do in order to try and sound boring. but it's bland. It doesn't have any of that sort of imperfections. And so it's almost like in order to AI proof ourselves, we've got to put some of that back.
I personally hate that style. Is it just because I'm old that I hate that style and a traditionalist, or am I missing something incredible?
I don't think it's, I don't know. I mean, incredible? I don't know if anything is incredible, if I'm honest.
Well, I think similar to anyone who is in the creative sector, sphere, if you like, people who make films, people who make radio comedy,
yep.
people who make any kind of sort of that kind of product, they've spent years, decades honing their craft, and then having to do all the other stuff as well, having to persuade somebody to commission some work and go through all of that. And then social media comes along and you've got people creating, comedy skits with very low production values and, some very basic sort of, humor, if you like,
yep.
Just the writing's very kind of wonky, but it's idiosyncratic and it feels kind of real. And then you think there are people are consuming hours and hours and hours of this stuff, this non-professional content, and loving it. What about me over here with my highly tuned, highly trained abilities to create? And I think I can see why that's kind of galling. But I think it's a different kind of product. It is it. We still make and people still want to watch high quality, high production values drama.
Yeah.
And this kind of style of voiceover, I think there's so many applications for which this style of voiceover just wouldn't work.
True.
I'm sort of listening to it from an actor's perspective, thinking I would love to be able to nail this, not because I think necessarily I'm going to be asked to do it in a voiceover world, or only in but I might be asked to do it as part of an audio drama. I might be asked to do it as a character in an audiobook or an animation or a video game. And so I would love to be able to nail this. I suspect it would take a lot of unpicking for me. So I'm fascinated by it as a kind of concept, as something to kind of get over.
Sometimes you get asked in the booth, can we just loosen it up a little bit?
Yes.
Can we just make it a bit more relaxed?
Yes.
I think here's some potential ways you can do that.
Yes.
Because I think, sometimes obviously clients don't really know what they want, but they know when they hear it.
Yeah. And
if they're looking for something a bit more loose, then some of those things that we train ourselves not to do, like shopping list intonation or like devoicing.
Yeah.
See what it feels like and see if that gives them, if that is what they mean by, can we just relax it a bit more? Or say, even upspeak, that one. I mean, I don't see this an awful lot, I have to say, actually, in Instagram type voiceover. The shopping listing is much more common. So guys, here's what I want to do, and this is my routine, and come and I use this really great powder, I use this really great blusher, that kind of blah 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 blah. But the upspeak thing, I don't hear that very often. But I mean, think about when you listen to people speak, particularly people under the age of 40.
Yes,
they all do it to an extent, and we don't do it in voiceover. Like never. It's like a cardinal sin, isn't it? You wouldn't use an intonation like that on the tagline.
I think you're being very generous in saying 40. I think 25, potentially 30.
Really?
Not under 40, no.
But this is it, Mark. Like, people do pick it up. My mum, who's in her 70s, does upspeak. She didn't used to, but she does now.
Oh, it's a fascinating discussion. But, of course, guys, we still need to do the wildcard bit of the show.
Dude.
So I'd like to
sure.
approach these scripts in a very different way, if we can. Anthony, I would like you to adopt the character of a slug who is leaving a slimy trail across the grass after a storm.
Okay.
Do the Humpty Dumpty script, I think.
Okay.
How many fairy tales do you recognise here? And why do they all seem to take place in the Middle Ages? Figures like Puss in Boots and Humpty Dumpty are not just recognisable, they're reused and reimagined in contemporary films like Shrek. Look for other familiar characters. Little Red Riding Hood conversing with a wolf. Robin Hood crossing a river. Jack and the Beanstalk. And Old Mother Goose soaring in the skies. These and others continue to shape our collective imagination.
I love the lip smacking. I was getting snail and slug from that, I think.
I definitely was.
Yeah.
There's me thinking, and I'm thinking, how far do I push this? Because if it is really sluggy, we're going to be here all day.
Yeah. I loved that. Because it's really difficult to do that, to sustain that throughout something like that.
Yeah. Without speeding up through it, yes.
Yeah. To kind of have the...
Without going, come on, I've got to
courage of your convictions. It's funny because I use a little bit of when I teach stuff, I use a little bit from Monsters Inc., where there's an absolutely fantastic scene with a little slug in it, who's it's their first day at Monsters University. Yeah, and by the time they get into the classroom, term's over. It's such a sweet little scene.
I know exactly the scene.
You know the scene I mean,
yes,
and it's
absolutely.
really difficult to sustain that level of.
Totally.
So it's very sweet. I loved that. So I thought that was fantastic.
Right, Sam, you get to choose one for me.
Yeah, I would like you to take script 2, and I'd like you to be a shoe salesman in a really old-fashioned little shoe shop, a bit like the wand shop in Harry Potter. And I want you to be serving one super picky customer.
Okay, yes.
Oh, that's very specific, Sam.
Now, I've been doing therapy on and off for, about a decade now. And I must say, it can be very hard finding a therapist that you click with, let alone someone with an open schedule in general. Whether it's dealing, the initial search, location, or connecting with a therapist, doing all of that work, only to find out that, you don't vibe with that person. It can be incredibly discouraging. I suggest getting your feet wet with therapy through GoodEar in order to start healing the things that shouldn't have any power over you.
I mean, that was like an entire episode of Are You Being Served?
Exactly. I can imagine you very much vibing with Are You Being Served on that. Were you trying shoes on and off?
My
Slip-ons?
picky customer was, and then he didn't like the one, so incredibly discouraging with not liking the vibe and then getting feet wet. That's what I was thinking.
Very nice. I liked your characterisation.
And what's lovely about that as well is that just vocally, just in terms of technically and your technical ability, you went all the way up and down your range like a xylophone.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's so just orally stimulating to just hit, like this. There's so much there to keep my ear interested in a read like that.
Well, if you want to play along in the privacy of your own booth, as I've said before, we've put the scripts in the show notes, and you can have a try yourself.
You absolutely can. And big thanks to our special guest this week, Anthony Shuster. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you for inviting me on. I couldn't have enjoyed it more. I just talking about this stuff is my favourite.
I'm so pleased.
Don't forget, you can use the scripts for practice, people, and we'd love it if you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts.
So that is it for this week, and thanks again to Anthony Shuster, and we will be back again next week with more scripts and another voiceover guest when we will be asking, all together now on this one, when we will be asking, how do you say that?
How do you say that?